My wife complained about everything. I fixed everything, and she found new things, so I fixed the marriage. The plate shatters in the sink so loud the dog bolts off the kitchen rug. And my wife doesn't even flinch. She just stares at me like I did it on purpose. Of course, she says, voice flat, eyes already scanning for the next mistake. Of course you'd put the heavy one on top of the glass one. Why would you think? Her hands are on her hips. She's still wearing her work blouse, sleeves rolled to her elbows like she's gearing up for battle. There's a calendar magnet on the fridge that says family in cheerful letters, and it feels like it's mocking me. I'm standing there with dish soap on my fingers and a tiny crescent of blood blooming on my thumb from where the sharp edge nicked me. And I'm thinking, she's going to make this about my character. She's going to make it about who I am as a person. I reach for a towel, but she's already talking, already winding up. And the trash is full again, she says, tilting her head toward the bin like it's evidence. I asked you this morning. I literally asked you. Do you hear me when I speak, or do you just... She cuts herself off because she sees my face, sees something changing. I don't say sorry. I don't scramble to fix it. I just look at her, then I look at my bleeding thumb, and then I look at the broken pieces in the sink, and my chest gets tight in this strange, calm way. I can't do this anymore, I say quietly. Not dramatic, not yelling, just a sentence that lands heavy in the room. It was a Tuesday night about 8 months ago when I realized I'd started living like an assistant instead of a husband. Like my job was to anticipate complaints, eliminate problems before they could be mentioned, and keep the peace by constantly improving everything around her. It wasn't one big blow-up. It was a slow, humiliating accumulation of tiny moments. Reloading the dishwasher twice because you don't stack them right, remopping a floor that was already clean because it still feels sticky, redoing an email to the school because you're too blunt, pulling over to recheck a route because you always miss turns, changing the thermostat by 1 degree because it's freezing, then 1 degree back because now it's stuffy, like our whole life was a dial I couldn't set correctly. I wasn't fixing things because I wanted a nice home or a smooth routine. I was fixing things because her unhappiness felt like a fog that seeped into everything. And I kept believing if I could just clear the next obstacle, she'd finally exhale and we'd get our marriage back. Let me be fair to her for a second, because I know how this reads. I'm not married to a cartoon villain who wakes up excited to ruin my day. My wife, Erin, can be funny in this sharp, quick way that makes strangers like her instantly. She's the person who will notice you're nervous at a party and ask you a question that pulls you into the conversation. She's competent. She's the one who remembers birthdays, who packs the extra snack, who knows which teacher likes emails and which one prefers calls. She's also the kind of person who can look at a perfectly good day and find the one thread that's loose and pull at it until the whole thing feels ruined. When we first got together, I honestly mistook it for standards. We were in our late 20s. We both had jobs. We were building a life. I liked that she cared about things. I liked that she had opinions. My previous girlfriend had been very go with the flow, and I'd always felt like I was dragging us through life while she drifted. Erin wasn't like that. Erin was decisive. Erin would look at a problem and say, okay, here's what we do. That felt like partnership. Somewhere along the way, here's what we do turned into here's what you did wrong. It became normal for her to narrate my shortcomings like a running commentary. If the grocery bags were too heavy, it was because I always overbuy. If I didn't buy enough, it was because I never think ahead. If I bought the brand that was on sale, I was cheap. If I bought the brand she liked, I was wasting money. If I cleaned the kitchen, she'd point out the one crumb in the corner. If I didn't clean the kitchen before sitting down, she'd say, must be nice to relax. I started doing this thing where I'd scan the room when she walked in. What's out of place? What could trigger her? Is the mail stacked too high? Did I leave a light on? Did I forget to switch the laundry? I'd preemptively apologize for things that hadn't even happened yet. Sorry, I didn't get to the trash yet. I'd say, like I was trying to get ahead of the bullet. I didn't call emotional abuse because that felt too heavy. I didn't call it anything. I just told myself she was stressed. Work was stressful. Life was stressful. We had a kid. Everyone complained sometimes. And she wasn't wrong that things could be better. The sink did need fixing. The budget did need tightening. The schedule didn't need managing. The problem was the way the complaining became the air we breathed. The day it really clicked for me wasn't even about me. It was about our son, Mason, who's 6. He came home with a little paper crown from school, proud as anything, and he ran into the kitchen shouting, "Look, I'm king of reading." He put the crown on Erin's head first because he adores her. Erin glanced at it and, without thinking, said, "You're going to tear it if you keep grabbing it like that. And why is it already bent?" Mason's smile faltered. He backed away like he'd stepped on something sharp. I watched it happen in real time. The way her brain went straight to what was wrong. The way my son absorbed it like a lesson. The way I rushed in with fake cheer. "That's awesome, buddy." Trying to plaster over the moment like you cover a stain before it sets. That night, after Mason was asleep, I tried to bring it up gently. I said, "Hey," he was really excited. "Maybe next time we could just meet him there, you know?" Erin looked at me like I'd accused her of a crime. "So now I'm a bad mother," she said, voice rising. "Great. Add it to the list." That was another thing she did. Any feedback became an attack. Any request became me criticizing her. It was like the only options were she's perfect or she's being persecuted. There was no middle ground where we were just two people trying to do life together. So I did what I always did. I tried to fix it. I booked a weekend away. She complained about the hotel pillows and the noise and how I chose the wrong restaurant and how the drive was too long. I hired a cleaner once a month. She complained the cleaner doesn't do it right and then followed her around re-cleaning, which somehow made it my fault because you always choose the cheap option. I started meal prepping. She complained the food was boring and then complained when I tried new recipes because why are you experimenting on a Tuesday? I organized the garage. She complained I moved her storage bins without asking. I made a budget spreadsheet. She complained I was being controlling. I stopped spending money without telling her. She complained I was secretive. You see the pattern. Every fix created new angles for dissatisfaction. Eventually, I found myself doing this frantic thing, fixing more and more tangible things in the hope it would soothe whatever was intangible in her. Like if the world around her was perfectly arranged, she'd finally feel safe. But the safety never came because it wasn't about the world. It was about her nervous system, her need for control, her habit of scanning for threats and imperfections and trying to manage them by criticizing. And I'm not saying that to diagnose her. I'm saying it because it took me too long to understand. I was trying to solve a problem that wasn't actually the sink or the trash or the thermostat. The real problem was the way she spoke to me, the way she spoke to our son, the way she turned daily life into a performance review. The first time I said emotional neglect out loud was in a therapist's office, and I felt ridiculous, like I was being dramatic. But the therapist didn't blink. She asked me, "When you come home, do you feel emotionally safe?" And I sat there and realized I didn't. I felt like I was walking into a test I hadn't studied for. Erin agreed to couples therapy in the way someone agrees to go to the dentist, reluctantly, with the assumption it's unnecessary and the other person is making a fuss. She came into the first session armed with examples. The therapist asked what brought us in, and Erin launched into a list of my patterns. I don't take initiative. I don't plan. I don't listen. I forget everything. She said it with this calm certainty, like she was presenting facts. When it was my turn, I surprised myself by saying, "I feel like I'm failing all the time." My voice sounded small even to me. Like no matter what I do, I'm wrong. And I'm tired. Erin scoffed. "See, this is what I mean," she said to the therapist. "He makes everything about his feelings." The therapist held up a hand. "Feelings are part of it," she said. "In a marriage, feelings matter." Erin's face tightened. She glanced at me like I'd bribed the therapist. We went for 6 sessions. Some are okay. Erin would cry and talk about her upbringing, how her dad criticized everything, how nothing was ever good enough, how she learned to stay ahead by pointing out problems first. I felt compassion. I really did. There were moments where she'd look at me with this raw vulnerability and say, "I'm scared all the time." And I want to hold her and tell her she didn't have to be. But then we'd go home and she'd see a dish in the sink and the old Erin would snap back into place like a mask. I started noticing something else. She wasn't actually happier after I fixed things. She was more vigilant. Let my fixing raise the stakes. If I fixed the sink, now the bathroom fan became proof I don't care because it makes a noise. If I fixed the fan, the neighbor's barking dog became a crisis. If I handled that, then my tone of voice when I said okay became the problem. There was always something. Meanwhile, I was shrinking. I stopped suggesting things because she'd find what was wrong. I stopped telling her about my day because she'd tell me how I could have handled it better. I stopped venting because she'd use it later as evidence I'm negative. I started spending extra time at work because the office felt calmer than home. And then she complained I was never around. The night I finally broke wasn't the broken plate night. It was the night she complained about my mom's funeral. My mom died last year. It was sudden. A stroke. One day, she was sending me photos of her garden. The next day, I was standing in a hospital hallway staring at a vending machine like it had answers. Erin was helpful in the logistical ways. She watched Mason. She drove me to the hospital. She called my aunt. I appreciated that. But when we got home after the funeral, after the receiving line and the awkward hugs and the endless "she's in a better place" comments, I collapsed onto the couch like my body finally gave up. Erin stood in the doorway, looking around the living room, and said, "It smells like smoke in here. Did your uncle bring cigars? God, I hate that." Then she added, "Also, you didn't introduce me to that woman from your work. That was weird." I just stared at her. My grief felt like a heavy coat I couldn't take off, and she was talking about introductions. I remember thinking I could literally be falling apart, and she'd still find a detail to critique. That's when something in me started to detach. Not in a dramatic, storming out way. More like a slow internal decision. I can't keep living like this. So when the plate shatters in the sink and she starts it on me like she's done 1,000 times, the words come out before I can second-guess them. I can't do this anymore. Erin's eyes narrow. "Do what?" she says sharply. "This," I say, gesturing between us. The constant criticism. The way nothing is ever good enough. The way I'm always bracing for you to find the next thing wrong. She laughs, but it's brittle. "Oh my God," she says. "So you're going to blame me for a plate you broke?" "It's not about the plate," I say, and my voice cracks on the last word because it's been holding so much. "It's never about the plate." Erin steps closer, and her face is flushed now. "So what? I'm just supposed to sit here and pretend things are fine," she says, voice rising. "Pretend you're helpful? Pretend this house doesn't fall apart unless I manage everything." I feel that familiar urge to defend myself, to list everything I've done to prove my worth. I've fixed the sink, the fan, the deck boards, the car registration, the insurance, the school forms, the groceries, the budgeting, the bedtime routine. I've done the repairs, the calls, the cleanups. But I know from experience it won't matter. If I list my contributions, she'll find a way to disqualify them. If I say I'm tired, she'll say she's more tired. If I say I'm hurt, she'll say I'm making her the villain. So instead, I do something new. I'm not arguing about chores. I say quietly, "I'm telling you I'm done being talked to like I'm incompetent." Erin's mouth opens like she's about to fire back. Then she stops because my tone is different. Not pleading, not defensive, just final. "You're being dramatic," she says after a beat, softer now, like she's testing a different approach. "You always do this. You get sensitive, and then you make it a whole thing." That word, sensitive, hits me like it always does. It's her favorite shortcut. If I'm sensitive, then she doesn't have to consider that she's harsh. I look at my bleeding thumb again, then I go to the drawer and grab a bandage. I do it slowly, deliberately. Erin watches me, confused because I'm not doing the dance with her. "I'm going to say this once," I tell her, wrapping the bandage. "We either take this seriously and get real help, or I'm leaving." Erin goes very still. "Leaving," she repeats, like the concept is offensive. "Yes," I say. "You wouldn't," she says automatically, the same way Noah in another story might say it. The same family logic. You won't do the hard thing. You'll keep absorbing it. I swallow. My heart is pounding, but I keep my voice steady. "I already talked to a lawyer," I say, and I hate that I have to say it to be believed, but I know Erin. Words without consequences are just background noise to her. I already found a place I can stay if I need to. I'm not threatening you. I'm informing you. Her eyes widen, and I see fear flash across her face, quick and sharp. For a second, she looks like she might cry. Then she hardens. So you're blackmailing me, she says, jaw tight. You're trying to scare me into being your perfect little wife. No, I say, and I feel my own tears start hot behind my eyes. I'm trying to save myself. And I'm trying to save Mason from growing up thinking this is normal. That lands. Not like a miracle fix, but like a hit. Erin's face changes. Her shoulders drop a fraction. She looks away toward the hallway, where Mason's door is closed. The house is quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the faint sound of the dishwasher. The broken plate pieces are still in the sink. The apples bowl is still on the counter from a week ago. Everything looks normal, and yet it feels like we're standing on the edge of something. I don't talk to him like that, she says finally, but her voice is less sure. You do, I say gently, and it hurts to say it. Not always, but enough that he notices. He watches your face when he brings you things. He's learning what love looks like. And right now, love looks like waiting to be corrected. Erin's eyes fill, and she wipes them fast like she's angry at herself for the tears. I'm just trying to keep things together, she whispers. I know, I say, but you're breaking us while you do it. We stand there, and I don't rush to comfort her. That's another new thing, because comfort has become a reset button in our marriage. She cries, I soften, and nothing changes. I can love her and still refuse to be the sponge. The next day, I take Mason to school, and I call the therapist we saw for couples counseling. I leave a message. Erin texts me twice while I'm at work. One message saying, I can't believe you said you talked to a lawyer, and the second message, 10 minutes later, saying I don't want to lose you. The whiplash is familiar. That week, Erin actually shows up to therapy differently. Not perfect, not suddenly healed, but present. The therapist asks Erin what she's afraid of. Erin says quietly, I'm afraid if I stop paying attention, everything will fall apart and it'll be my fault. The therapist asks where she learned that. Erin talks about her dad, about how nothing was ever right, about how criticism was the language of love in her house. Erin looks at me and says, I don't know how to turn it off. The therapist doesn't give her a pass. She says, you can't turn it off overnight, but you can take responsibility for the impact. She tells Erin to practice pausing before commenting, to ask herself if something is urgent or just irritating, to replace complaints with requests, and to acknowledge effort even if it's not perfect. She tells me to stop fixing everything, to stop being the buffer between Erin and discomfort, because my fixing has become part of the cycle. If Erin complains, I fix, which reinforces that complaining works. If I stop fixing, Erin has to sit with her feelings instead of outsourcing them onto me. That sounded good in an office. At home, it was messy. The first time Erin started to criticize and then stopped herself mid-sentence, it was like watching someone hit a wall. She opened her mouth. I saw the words queued up, and then she closed it and swallowed. Her face tightened. She walked away to the bathroom and shut the door harder than necessary. Later she came out and said, stiffly, can you please take the trash out when you have a minute? It wasn't warm. It wasn't gentle. But it was a request instead of an attack. I said, yes, and I took it out. Then I said, thank you for asking like that. Erin rolled her eyes, but she didn't argue. There were setbacks. There were nights she snapped and then blamed me for pushing her. There were mornings she'd wake up and immediately start listing problems, and I'd feel my chest tighten, and I'd say, I'm not available for criticism right now. If you have a request, tell me. If you need a vent, tell me. But I'm not taking shots. Sometimes she would storm off. Sometimes she would take a breath and try again. Sometimes she would cry and accuse me of abandoning her emotionally. And I would say, I'm still here. I'm just not being a punching bag. The hardest part was realizing I also had to change. Not in a C. It's both of us way that let her off the hook. In a very practical way. I had trained Erin to believe the world would rearrange itself to soothe her discomfort because I kept rearranging it. I had also trained myself to think love means preventing someone from being upset. It doesn't. It means showing up honestly and letting them have their feelings without letting those feelings become weapons. About 3 months into therapy, something happened that made me believe we might actually have a chance. Mason came home with another paper thing. This time a drawing of our family. Stick figures, big smiles. He held it up to Erin and said, "Look, I made you with long hair." Erin stared at it. I watched her face, waiting for the usual. The paper was wrinkled. The marker bled through. It was messy and perfect. Erin took a breath. I saw her do the pause. Then she smiled, small, real, and said, "I love it. Thank you for making me." Mason's whole body relaxed, like he'd been holding his breath without realizing it. He grinned and went, "Really?" Erin nodded. "Really," she said, and she pulled him into a hug. After he ran off, Erin leaned against the counter and put a hand over her mouth like she was shocked at herself. Her eyes were wet. "That felt different," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, and my throat tightened. It did. I'm not going to pretend it's a fairy tale now. We're still working. Erin still complains sometimes. I still get defensive sometimes. There are days where I think, maybe it's too late, maybe the grooves are too deep. There are days where Erin slips into the old voice, and I feel myself start to shrink, and I have to fight not to disappear. There are days where she looks at me after snapping and says, "I'm sorry," and I can tell she means it, and it feels like a new language we're both learning badly. But here's what changed. I stopped believing I could fix her feelings by fixing the environment. I stopped confusing love with appeasement. I stopped acting like my job was to earn peace by being flawless. I started treating the way she speaks to me as a boundary, not a weather pattern I have to endure. And when I say I fixed the marriage, I don't mean I fixed Erin. I don't mean I fixed the house. I mean I fixed the definition of what we were doing. I fixed the part where I was silently accepting something that was slowly erasing me. I fixed the part where Mason was learning that love means bracing for criticism. I fixed the part where Erin's anxiety was running the whole home and everyone else was adapting around it. There's a line our therapist said that I wrote down on a sticky note and kept in my wallet for a while because I needed it. You can be compassionate without being compliant. That's basically the whole thing. I'm compassionate toward Erin's history. I'm compassionate toward the fear underneath the complaints. I'm compassionate toward the fact that change is hard and shame makes people defensive and nobody wakes up wanting to be the person who drains the room. But I'm not compliant anymore. I'm not letting compassion be an excuse for contempt. The broken plate in the sink that night? I cleaned it up after we talked. Erin didn't apologize immediately. She went into the bedroom and shut the door and cried. Later she came out, sat at the kitchen table, and said, quietly, "I don't want to be like this." Her voice sounded small, like she was admitting something she'd been hiding from herself. I sat down across from her and said, "Then we do the work." And for the first time in a long time, it felt like we meant both of us. Not me fixing and her finding new things to be unhappy about, but both of us actually building something instead of managing damage.